Great. Okay.
Sorry, everything I
Alright.
say is funny, so I can't say
I know.
anything.
Real quick, I'll just re-say the general gist of it, just in case like Kartos think it's corrupted or something. But each week, someone's going to be in charge of picking a game for the other two people to also play. It should be a game that they really like, perhaps even one of their favorites, and that they think is really interesting and want to talk about with the other people. We will have some as of yet undetermined amount of time for the other two people to play the game, and then we'll reconvene. The first person will sort of present their thoughts about the game, and then the other two people will sort of talk about their experiences, and we'll have a discussion about it. We should really
Sounds
figure out how
great.
much time we're giving each other to play it.
Oh yeah.
I say no schedule. Screw the people.
That's fair. I like that because then it doesn't feel like a chore. The downside is I tend to never do anything if there's not a deadline, i.e. D&D planning.
We'll yell at you. Don't worry. We'll
Okay,
yell.
sick. I'll just set my own deadlines for myself.
I will take a block out of your Minecraft house for every day you don't work towards the process.
Gasp. Okay.
So watch out.
He just logs back in and his house is gone completely.
Not like he meant every Minecraft day that I don't work on it. Fuck.
Oh no.
Yeah, so what's your first game for us then, Nick?
So really quick, I want to talk about why I was back and forth. I'm not going to tell you the other game because I want to do it eventually. I was back and forth because the one that I ended up not picking is a very good game. It's one of my favorites, but it's more of like an emotional experience and a journey rather than like gameplay driven. And I felt like for the first one at least, something that's more gameplay driven was probably more of a good place to start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't want to cry until at least like the 6th or 7th one of these we do. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
6th or 7th. Okay.
Hello?
Wait, are we talking cry from the story or cry from how difficult the game is, aka getting over it?
If you found that game difficult, I would worry very strongly about your ability to function as a human.
No, I meant like for Cardo not wanting to cry from a game. Because,
no, I know. I don't mean getting over it. I mean the game I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay. Hey, if anybody can struggle in a simple gameplay, it's me.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's Cardo. I was like, we're throwing shade, baby.
Am I also wrong there? No, I'm just joking. I'm joking.
Okay, so the game I landed on, like I said, it's very mechanics driven, and I think it's very interesting. It's very unique, even among its genre, which is already a little niche. So the game we're playing, or should I describe it more first, or should I just tell you what it is and then describe it?
What if you like gave like a summary of it, like kind of like told us what the game is about, and then end up with saying like the game is blah blah blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and maybe people can
Like a
try
little
to guess
trailer.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
I mean, you guys can even guess what it is based on my descriptions. So
okay.
All right, all you kids at home, guess what it is. Write your guess down on a piece of paper.
Send us an email at
I don't
title
give a shit.
title of the podcast at gmail.com.
There you go.
Unless
Perfect.
someone's already taken that email. So this is predominantly a
Civ 5.
I'd call it a roguelike first, and then a RPG second. So it's a roguelike RPG, which has a added layer on top of it of being almost like Windows 95 style. So the game is literally played on a virtual desktop, and you get different like windows that pop up and move around and that you interact with, and things like that are part of the game. But it is still like a traditional fantasy RPG, just happening with all of those things happening on top of it. And it sounds a little gimmicky, but they actually do a very good job of actually like integrating it into the mechanics of the game and making it a lot more layered and deeper than if it was just a roguelike RPG. I keep saying that word. Do you guys know what roguelikes are?
Like Star Wars or
You kids and your Nintendos. No, so roguelike is a game that has a lot of random elements to it and is intended to be played multiple times. And each time you start over from nothing, but the further you progress within each run, you will unlock more items or abilities or areas that let you either progress farther or do better or just have more fun in general. And there's a lot of customization usually, and each run will be different than the last one. Another reason why I thought this would be a good pick is because you guys could play this game for 45 minutes and still come in and have a reasonable conversation about it, or you could go fucking all in and play this game for 10 or 15 hours if you loved it. So there's a lot of replayability, but you could also easily beat the game once in maybe like 45 minutes or an hour. Probably not on your first run because you'll be learning how it works, but so I think it gives a lot of leeway in how much time you guys want to spend for it.
Nice.
Okay, so the game is called Kingsway. If you guys want to look it up on Steam.
Kingsway.
Crusader Kings.
No, not that. Don't do it.
Dude,
So-
this looks dope.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Sorry, I'm
It looks really
Love to
interesting.
hear it.
Yeah.
I want to let you guys discover things for yourself, but I will say two things. One, it acts like a computer. So things you think you might be able to do on a computer, try them out. You might be able to do it.
Oh.
And then the other thing I will say is it has a okay tutorial, but the one thing it doesn't tell you about is music. And the music is fantastic, and so I highly recommend you check out the music. There's some slaps in there.
Nice.
It's freaking. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love how one of the awards it got is best casual game winner. So thank you for starting us off on
Perfect.
something that could get an award for best casual game.
But Geek and Sundry also called it stressful, odd, and pop-up filled.
I'm actually seeing an interesting review here. It says it's fun.
Perfect.
This is from TooMuchDad, actually.
Did I actually review it?
No.
You reviewed this on January 2018, my guy.
That's actually really funny. So yeah, okay, I'll read the review right now that I wrote on January 28th, 2018 at 3:43 p.m. if anyone was curious.
It's important.
It's fun. It could use some late game balance, I think, because you seem to either be way overpowered or you slog your way through the game for 15 minutes and slowly die before making it very far. However, it'll keep you entertained for 5 to 10 hours, and at the price, it's definitely worth picking up. For the record, it is $10 right now on Steam, which is the normal price. So here's my question for you guys. It's a more of a general question. When you guys are like going to experience a new piece of media, whether it's a game or a movie or a TV show, are you guys inclined to try to find out as much as possible beforehand, or are you trying to go in like as blind as possible?
I think it depends a lot. So what I like to do is try to get a general idea of if the movie or the video game or whatever is good, whatever that means, and then try to learn as little as possible. Here's a good example. I learned that Mad Max Fury Road was a really good movie. I kept hearing it from people all over the place. This movie's awesome. This movie's awesome. But I didn't really know anything about it. And then when I went to see it, it fucking blew my socks off, and I won't shut up about it, 6, 7, however many years later. So, it's like I want to know if it's good before I spend the money to like play it, but then I don't necessarily want to know too much about it because, you want to experience the story or the whatever. What about you, Physics
I
Fun
kind
Time?
of feel the same. But like on one hand, I would my initial reaction was like, I don't want to know anything. Like I just want to have the experience and see what it's like. But then I think like I've watched so many playthroughs of games and then gone and bought the game and played it myself. You know what I mean? So
Right.
am I lying? I don't know. Or do I just like consume both ways, Like
I feel like for that though, it really depends on what the game is, because something like Dark Souls,
exactly.
a game Physics just finished on stream.
Twitch.tv/PhysicsPhuntime.
Over the course of what, like 6 months?
Yeah.
Which is totally
First
fine.
playthrough
I'm
of
not
that.
trying to throw shade. What I was gonna say though is like, you can know everything about that game and still have a really like rich, deep experience and have a ton of fun and get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's something like, I don't know, like Doki Doki Literature Club, that you're probably less likely to get as much out of if you have already like watched a full playthrough of it.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
yeah, it's interesting.
Mhm.
I will say I am pretty close to Carto also, although I'm probably even a little farther from physics on the Carto physics scale. If someone's like, "Ooh, this game or this movie, you should watch it." I'm like, "Sure." I don't even want to know if like the general consensus is that it's good or it's bad. If someone just like tells me that it's interesting, like there's one cool thing about it, then that's usually enough for me to be like, "Sure." Cuz I'm like kind of down to watch a bad movie and like be able to bitch about how shitty it was.
Heck
Yeah.
yeah.
Me and my wife love complaining about things that are shit, so it's fun.
I would
Ooh,
love to
rubbish
see, by
slab.
the way, like a spectrum of like physics to Carto, and like what are some of the intervals along the way, and like where do we put TooMuchDad? Where do we put other people?
Wait, but what?
I don't know, but it was just what he was saying, like
On
about
the
where he's
physics
coming
to
from.
Carto scale.
That's just that visual representation
We'll
of
have a
something.
we'll
It's cracking me up.
we'll have a 2-axis one. It's like physics to Carto, too much dad to sneaky squid, and nobody knows what it means at all, but they put
Which is,
themselves in it.
yes, can we do this, please?
Sure, I'm down.
Oh my god, I'll have Panda draft up a
Or
little
if there's some other fourth person you guys think is appropriate.
Oh god. No, I think that's a good axis of power. I can't.
Maybe phrasing? Not phrasing, but axis of power sounds a little
Yeah.
title
evil.
might need a little bit of work.
Do you guys have any questions either about the game or like about what to do? Or like what we're gonna do?
No, I think I got it. So just play it.
Yeah.
Report
Play it as much
back.
as you want. Try to at least beat it once.
Yeah.
But like by all means if you want to play more. Cause like just to
Go ahead.
start out, there's like 5 classes that you can play as if you want. But by no means do you have to like try to beat it as each class or something.
All right, well let's get to this game and we'll see y'all after the break. And then we have a sponsored segment sponsored by
Lanky Lads videos.
Damn straight.
Sick.
Okay. So Kingsway, right?
That's a
Am I right? It's a heck of a it is a video game, right?
Yeah,
that is a
that's
heck
true.
of a transition.
Okay. So honestly, the way I want to start it is I just want to hear from you guys like yay or nay. Kingsway,
Just
good or bad?
a straight thumbs up or thumbs down, good or bad.
Thumbs up or thumbs down, and then we'll obviously get more into it.
Okay.
Because I think making you just like, because like you could rate it, but like there's a lot of I just want to know: did you like the game? Did you not like the game?
Sorry. I just hate lunch. Can't wait
Keep
to
that
listen
in,
to that.
That's the episode opener.
Hell yeah!
I liked it a lot.
Ooh, okay.
Yep. Cardo.
So thumbs up from physics.
Oh, yeah.
Cardo, what'd you think?
See, I'm gonna have to give a thumb at a 90-degree angle.
Okay, a sideways
I'm
thumb.
like, yeah, I got sideways. Was that an option? How many degrees of thumb can I choose from?
360. You can dislocate your shoulder to put it at weird angles.
At 270 degrees.
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna go like I'm gonna go like 70 degrees thumb. Like it's up, but like just barely.
Okay, so barely above sideways.
Well, this is going to
Okay.
be an interesting
Yes,
conversation. I'm curious as to
I would
why.
probably go like 3/4 of the way from sideways to straight up.
This is your game, and you're 3/4.
Yeah, I like how I was like, oh, this will avoid like ambiguity. If I had to go with my original, like you can only be positive or negative about it, I would do thumbs up also. All right, I want to hear. I guess I don't know what the format should be, but I want to hear you guys talk about it since I feel like I'm almost like the authority on it. Like I can probably answer questions and stuff like that. So I guess physics, you were the most enthusiastic. Tell us what you liked about
Oh
it,
yeah.
and kind of tell us like how your playthrough went or multiple playthroughs.
Absolutely. So I'll just tell you like a little bit. Like I actually did probably 5 different playthroughs, but the first 3 were just scrub. Like I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you have to block and then fight." You know what I mean? Like that type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And then and I tried like different classes too just to kind of see like what I was interested in. And then my first serious one I played as a rogue, I think it was. And so I got really into like figuring out how to like maximize the stats, particularly with like the magic items, because somehow I was getting a ton of them, which also is kind of cool with that game because you can like, obviously you pick a class at the beginning, like warrior, adventurer, rogue, whatever,
Yeah.
but then like there is some stuff with the world that I think affects how you actually play the game too, because maybe I'm picking
Yeah,
up
for
a bunch
sure.
of magic items, so I want to maximize that, or maybe I'm picking up orbs that require a lot of intelligence, and so like those are really good, and I want to do that. But and then I actually was so pissed because on my last run that I probably played for like 4 hours, I lit 2 of the beacons. I was on my way to the third one and I died. And I was
Oh
so
no!
upset.
How'd you die?
The shadow monster thingies are so
No.
powerful. Yeah. And so I got my cheeks clapped by one of those.
F.
Now, wait. What is the shadow? Is that when you were in the shadow, you waited too long? There's like special
Yes.
monsters?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what they're called, but it just says like shadow,
Yeah,
I
they're like
think.
shadow
And
creatures or something.
exactly. And they're like super lot of health, and like my attacks were really high, but I accidentally took off my like normal attack, and so I only had my magic attacks on
no.
too, and I was like, "Oh, running out of magic. This is great." So,
Yeah.
Yeah, Cardo.
yeah.
So like I purposely tested what happened because I actually didn't know if you like fell into the shadows because I was like, I wonder if you just insta die, but you don't die right away. You fight shadow monsters. I was in a level 1 area with like monsters that were 4 to 5 HP. The shadow monsters were level 3 with 28 HP. So they're quite strong compared to the rest.
Okay. Well, hey, for the listeners who are, who may or may not have played Kingsway, just to sort of explain like the basics of the game. So the game is it's kind of interesting. So it's built like you're in an operating system for a computer. So you'll have like a different browser window for navigating the world, or for your inventory, or your health, or any number of things. So it's kind of interesting how you're able to sort of rearrange your UI however you'd like
Yeah,
for that.
it's a pretty big part of it. So starting even further back, well, you load up the game and you get to pick a new character. The customization is actually kind of fun, like the visual customization. I kind of always just randomized myself, but there's a lot of silly faces you can make. And then you pick a class. I think to start out there's 4. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, it's like Beastkin, Ranger, or something like
There's
that.
warrior, rogue, mage, and
Mage.
beastkin, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
There are unlockable secret characters that I don't know if you guys ever actually got to. Yeah, I unlocked one of them and then spoiled myself afterwards. So you will select a class, and it just sort of tells you generally what they're good at. Like the warrior is. Oh, I think there's also an adventurer too as a 5th class who's like perfectly balanced as all things should be. Disney, don't sue us. Um, and warriors good at like melee attacks, rogues are fast, etc. And it'll like show their stats. And then the other thing you get to do, which I think is really cool, is you get to start with a gift. It can be extra HP, extra mana, a bit of extra gold, but the more you play the game, you can actually unlock new gifts to start with. And the one I really liked was you could get a book of skill, which you would start with and you'd use it, and it would just let you unlock a skill at level 1, which is really, really good. Skills are sort of how you get better other than just stats, but we'll get into that. So you load into the world after you've picked your book, and you basically have no equipment. You're level 1, you have no abilities, and you kind of just have to like basically punch monsters to death to try to level up. And like Cardo said, you're in a operating system, and one of your windows is the world, and it's basically just like point and click from like node to node in the world.
Right, so you can imagine the world map as like a bunch of different like nodes that are connected by single lines. So you're in a node and then you can travel to the next node, and on the way you might fight a monster, or when you get to the node there might be an event that happens. But you're moving around this world of like interconnected nodes.
Yeah, and some of the there's got to be a better word than nodes, but some of the nodes you can tell ahead of time are going to be special locations, like fortresses or dungeons or beacons, which are special points of interest, or monoliths. But some of them are just normal nodes, and they will be like random encounters. So it might be a person who needs your help, or it might be an abandoned hovel, or bandits, or whatever. And like Cardo said, on your way, you might encounter enemies, or you might not. You start as far west as possible on the world map, and the further east you go, the higher level the enemies become.
Kind of like college football in that way.
Heyo!
Suck it, Pac-12.
Yeah, dude, and Big 12, honestly. What's your hot takes on the Big 12 versus the Pac-12 physics?
What is any of that?
I know some of these words. But so you want to progress east. That's where all of the things you need to go are. But enemies get higher leveled the further east you go. But like physics, I think had said earlier, the longer you wait, there starts to be like darkness that's following you from the west to the east. And if you wait too long, you'll be in the darkness, and shadow monsters will start attacking you, which are significantly higher level than things you would normally encounter in that area. So it's a real balancing act between needing to train up a little bit before you go too far east, because you'll get your cheeks clapped if you start fighting monsters that are too high leveled. But if you wait around too long, you'll get your cheeks clapped by the shadow monsters, which I believe are part of the Sky Eater, which is like the thing you're trying to save the world from. So yeah, you spawn into the world, and you have like a note in your inventory that's like, hey, the world's gonna end. Come to the king's castle to like help save the world. And so that's like your goal. But along the way, you get like emails that give you new quests, and there's a guild at every town that you can get quests, or that you can turn the quests into. Some of the quests are just like go to a specific place on the map and do something. And other than that, the moment-to-moment gameplay is RPG-y with, oh god, this tornado sirens test.
Oh no.
Can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, my dogs are about to go crazy.
Oh no.
I'll keep it on recording though. Ellie.
Oh baby.
Yeah, so physics, tell us about your run and your experience, because yeah, you were pumped about the game.
I super enjoyed it. Like, I legitimately, if I didn't have so much grading to do today, I would probably go play it right after this. But I really felt like it was just a pretty fun adventure on the surface level. But then once you get into it more, just like what you're talking about with the balance between like feeling the pressure to move because you can sort of see the shadow sneak up on you, but then also like encountering new monsters as you move as well and level up. I don't know if you guys found or have gotten to like, well, I'm sure that you have, but some of the more difficult combat where they're like throwing darts at you and you have to avoid it, or like I got really sneaky too with the interface and like put my bag right by my person box thingy because I could switch out weapons during battle. So I could like switch in my staff of healing and like heal in the middle of a battle and then like switch back to my sword. And like just little things like that you can like manipulate the interface to kind of keep your character alive,
be able to use more than one item during a battle, or then when you're traveling, if you want to like put on different armor that like regenerates more magic while you're traveling or something. Like there are so many cool little things like that I discovered, and I'm sure that there's a billion more because knowing me, like I'm not the most observant person, so even after 10 hours of gameplay, I feel like there's still probably many little secrets or tricks that I haven't even figured out yet. So that's why I want to keep playing, you know?
I was actually gonna say physics. I thought that was like really innovative. That's not something that I like. The closest I got to actually using the user interface to my advantage was having the inventory close so I could do health potions quickly. Like it didn't even occur to me that, oh, you can switch weapons during battle if you have things here or there. It's like that sort of strategy that the game doesn't give you a tutorial about, that you just have to figure out yourself. That's pretty cool. And like, yeah, you had an innovation that didn't even occur to me. It's like, it's cool that you can have different experiences like that just based on the UI and not even the story or the choices you make.
Right.
And that's one thing, I think my biggest praise and one of my biggest detriments for the game, that's probably not the right word, but criticisms maybe, is I agree that like at first the whole it's a desktop thing seems like a gimmick and they could have just left it there and it would have been neat, but I agree that they did do a really good job of making it integral to how you play the game, because especially the, like Physics said, the further you get into the game, the more like enemies will either interact with your UI or their attacks will like be windows in the user interface that will like let you avoid them. My criticism of it is I wish they would have gone even further with it, because you're only ever sort of reacting to it. It would have been cool if you could be proactive with it. I mean, Physics was a little bit, but if like your attacks used windows like that in some sort of way, I think could have been really cool. I would have liked them to go even further, but I think that it was
like
a really
maybe
cool
if you open
thing.
a certain like if you open like Premiere Pro or something, you could like edit when their attacks happen, like that sort of thing. Is that what you mean?
Interest- Oh.
Exactly. No. Maybe things like I don't know exactly what I would want, but because you know how there were enemies whose attacks like were windows. Maybe if yours maybe made a window on your screen that was like getting bigger and obstructing your view of things, but the bigger it got, the more damage it did. So like you're sort of giving up real estate for what you can see at the
Oh, okay.
reward for doing more damage, or things like that, where it's really playing with the UI even more. But yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest strengths is that they didn't just leave the desktop as a gimmick. If they had, it would have been kind of
What if they
disappointing.
gave you like a command line and you could just type in like win game or like teleport end
Yeah.
or something? You get to the last boss and you just get roasted at like level 2.
Light beacon.
Yeah, light beacon. Install Minecraft.
I would have preferred, like, one of my little criticisms that came up a couple of times in my brain is, damn, I really wish I could be pressing hotkeys instead. Like,
So,
to attack, to...
well,
you can unlock some, but you can't unlock what I'm looking for, though. Like,
That's
if I
fair.
want to, like, do certain attacks or, like, switch out an attack because you do get different skills. So, like, maybe I want to use burn, but then I want to switch it out and, like, equip my, like, rush attack or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I really wish that there could be more customization like that. Did I miss that?
No, you're right that there are a few unlockable hotkeys, but it's mostly just for like opening and closing specific windows.
Yeah. So I think.
do.
Oh, I was just
I
gonna
was
say
gonna
that.
say.
Oh.
Oh, oh. No, you go ahead.
I just agree that I feel like with what you were saying with it being more reactive, because you have to like constantly be running around clicking everything. Like you can't just like use your keyboard to interact with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe playing devil's advocate a little bit. That might turn it more into like sweaty StarCraft.
Watch your tongue.
Like,
Watch
gotta
your
get my
tongue,
APMs
buddy.
up. I kind of like that it's very simple controls.
Mm-hmm.
I see where you're coming from, and I agree that like sometimes it gets almost a little frustrating how simple the controls are. Like, I could be doing so much more if you just give me more control.
Yeah.
But I think that limitation is on purpose, not out of a sense of, like, they didn't think about it.
Yeah, I could see that. I'm just over here like Age of Empires player being like, man, if I could just press like these 3 buttons on my keyboard, like I could make this so much faster and more efficient. So
yeah, I was gonna say, whether or not you like that intentional design, I do think it was at least intentional.
Let's see, what I think is interesting in all that is that, you know, we're talking about how the game gives limited amount of control over what you can do and how you can do it. And that was actually one of my main frustrations with the game. It took me maybe 2 or 3 runs to kind of figure out what I was doing. So on my 4th run, I started doing really well, and I was able to light the 3 beacons. I got to the king. I got past the king's guard, who's a really difficult boss. But what I found when I was playing through that was maybe 30 minutes into the run, so I'm getting pretty far. I'm leveling up. I'm getting new gear, new skills. The gameplay never really changed for me. It was always just attack, block, heal, and move to a new node. It just felt like there was nothing really new in the game because it was so simple. So after a while, I just got bored with, okay, well, I can't fight this next boss until my levels are higher, and to get higher levels, I just have to grind and do the same thing I've been doing for an hour a little longer. It felt like there was no learning or no improvement on my part. Like, I didn't have to learn how to get better. I just had to play longer. And I know this is a pretty simple game, so it might be a little much to say, like, hey, we need really deep mechanics on the level of, like, I don't know, Counter-Strike or StarCraft or Dark Souls or something.
Yeah.
But it did feel so basic that it just turned into a grind fest at the end for me.
Yeah, that's really fair. So I think one of my biggest criticisms about the game and why it's not a pure thumbs up originally is I agree that I had a similar experience in that the combat got very dull towards the end, but for me it was just that I was like way overpowered on both of my 2 runs where I won. So the first one I was a mage. I would look for like the best like mage power gear, and I would just use burn a bunch of times and just kill everybody. And I would just stock up on magic potions at every like store, and I just burned everyone, and I was never in any danger of dying. And then my other one, I was a rogue, and I got a couple weapons and like armor that gave me lifesteal. So I literally would just bonk people. And every single combat, without fail, I ended up with full health at the end, even if I had gotten hurt multiple times in the... Yeah. And so it really was just bonk, 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 bonk. And, like, there was some strategy along the way. Like, I found a couple armor pieces that gave me, like, magic item find % increase, which turns out is, like, super, super good. Instead of getting, like, normal armor as loot every time, even after just having like 30% increased magic item find, almost every single item I was getting was like enchanted. And so I was able to find really good armor really fast. The issue was the pieces of armor that had the magic item find were otherwise almost useless. And in fact, some of them even had like negative stats. So it was giving up benefits in the short term for long-term benefits, which is a cool balance. But I agree that like it did get very repetitious by the end, and that's definitely my biggest criticism of the game.
And I think it was repetitive, but I also, and this might be just my not being familiar with roguelike games, but it felt like such a long slog to get to the end. It's like, if every round is going to take me 2 to 4 hours to complete, and it's all this same repetitive combat, man, it's just taken too long. Like, if this was a 10-minute run, and then it's like, okay, well, I could have done this better. Let me try to optimize it for the next run, and maybe I'll get better gear or whatever. But for like 4 hours, like, oh, man.
For a roguelike, each run is extremely long. Normal roguelikes, a winning run is usually like 45 minutes long.
Okay.
And losses might be like 20 to 30 minutes. Whereas this one, you could spend 2 hours and still just get glacked after like the 3rd beacon or something.
I did.
I know.
If we had hotkeys to be more efficient at the game, it would go faster.
And I will say that, like, the game does get a little bit faster the more you learn some strategies. Like, because at the beginning, you're kind of just like, ooh, I don't know, is this ability any good? I don't know. Let me try it. And it might be an ability that you, like, never use. Like, I when I was doing the rogue, I think the first ability I took was, like, poison tip or something. Because I was like, ooh, poison damage, that's usually good in games. And I think poison was awful. I ended up, like, never using that. So that was a couple wasted skill points I used right at the beginning. So, but yeah, I will agree that it's long and gets pretty samey. And as much as I praised how, like, the enemy attacks use the user interface and stuff like that, I feel like most of them don't, and I would have liked to see more of it. There were some interesting ones that I had written down, like the shadow bandits, I think they're called. They will just randomly close different windows that you have or minimize them, which is really cool. Like, sometimes it'll even minimize, like, the combat window itself.
Yeah.
There were other enemies, like you had said, that will, like, throw up new windows that you have to, like, click on to avoid the attacks and stuff like that. But in general, most enemies don't do any of that, and most enemies are literally just click attack, click block, click attack, stuff like that.
But even when the enemies that would mess with your windows, like when they would mess with your windows, I would actually prefer that because I found it much easier to quickly click the arrows out than to actually take the HP damage. You know, maybe that's because I'm such a StarCraft. I'm gold in StarCraft, so I'm super pro.
No, I'm saying I really like when they do that.
Right, but I liked it because it made the game easier to me.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it does make it easier, but it also makes it more interesting. I don't think I ever got hit by any... I would have honestly liked those attacks to be harder to dodge.
Yeah, like you're going to make that really strange mechanic, like make it more difficult, less time or something.
I like how one of them is like literally called Scrub Lord, I think.
He just has little plants come up.
Yeah.
And if you lose to him, you're also a Scrub Lord.
Oof.
Got him. The way that they make the game difficult, the more you play it. So the first unlockable character, if you beat the game with anybody, you unlock a character called the Worthless. And that title is just about right. They start with 1 in every stat.
Oof.
They don't have an offhand slot. So, like, they don't have a shield slot. I assume it's because they're missing their other hand. And their abilities that they get are pretty lackluster for the most part. Some of them are good in the context of the Worthless. But starting with 1 in every stat is so bad. You start out dealing 0 to 1 damage. So half of the time you attack, you don't even deal damage. So the way that it increases the difficulty is it just makes you grind more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, that's not a particularly interesting way of increasing the difficulty.
Yeah.
There are 2 other unlockable characters, the, like, Demon Spawn and, like, the Awakened, I think, which admittedly I've not played with, so I don't know what they do. But I feel like there could be better ways to increase the difficulty than you do less damage, better spend more time grinding. And obviously there's probably, like, better players than us who have spent more time in the game.
No, there's no players better than us.
That's
My
true.
guy.
We are literally the best.
You can, and there's probably fun in not grinding, just going through the game underpowered and managing that. But for someone who's only going to play the game a few times, I don't particularly enjoy that. I'd rather have more interesting abilities that are, like, equal or potentially even less powerful than the ones I started with, rather than just having, like, being super underpowered.
Well, I just think this is interesting perspective to hear because when I was playing it, I, like, literally was writing down notes, and one of my notes is like, lots of replayability because I feel like there are, like, I have, like, noticed that depending on the items that you pick, maybe that totally changes how you engage in a fight, or, like, it changes what you want to level up in the future. It just feels like you can also interact with the people and, like, steal from them or give them money for items that they have, and so, like, you have like a goodness meter in the game too, which can affect your interaction with other characters. So I think that there are different ways to kind of spice it up. Like maybe one run you decide to steal from everybody and see what happens.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting, Physics, is after you beat the King's Guard in the King's Castle, like Carter said, he gives you an item called, I think it's like the King's, oh no, the Royal Disc. And it doesn't tell you what it does. Its description just says reputation is power.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure the more good you are, the stronger the weapon is, which is really neat.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Oh, I saw that little bar, and I didn't know what it meant. I couldn't find an effect for it. That's interesting. I wonder if you maximized evil, if it would do the same.
Yeah, I have no idea. And so I agree, Physics, that it does have a lot of replayability, because for me, I guess I would say the replayability is I would want to beat it with each different character type.
Mm-hmm.
Like the warrior, the mage, the rogue, the beastkin.
Mm-hmm.
Within one run type, I don't find... Maybe the mage, there's a decent amount of replayability because there's so many different spells.
Mm-hmm.
But like the rogue, it's like, ooh, do I want to hit people harder or do I want to hit people faster?
Right.
And that is interesting, and you'll have fun, but I feel like there could have been more substantial variety rather than just like item variety.
True. So I think item variety, but also like the different skills that you get also adds some fun, because like as you level up, you get like more skills unlocked that you can pick to fight with. What I would have liked is to like, again, have some hotkeys or something to have it be more easy to like switch out skills, even like mid battle possibly, because you could switch them out at any time, honestly, with your weapon. But when you're in a battle, that's not necessarily the first thing you're thinking of. Is like, oh, I'm going to go into my skills and select this one instead of that one. But like, I think that plus the weapons plus the different armor that you can pick up or like buy from the shops, like you can kind of min-max things, and that's a lot of fun to me. I don't know if that's the nerd in me coming out and being like, "Ooh, so how many more attack points do I have with this one?" You know what I mean? Like,
No,
I literally spent so much time fucking around with the items and like the configuration of things that I had just to kind of maximize different. You know, do I want to like have magic for the next half an hour? Do I want to have like really quick attack speed and see how that affects the battle? Like, it was just a lot of fun to kind of play around with those things. I mean, for such a small game, too, like, or cheap game.
So, see, Physics, if you like a game that's just a spreadsheet that you can adjust with a different front end, you're gonna love EU4. You're gonna love EU4.
I knew that was gonna happen as soon as you started talking. I could hear the EU4 in your voice.
Wait, huh? Can
you just
people
have
hear
this
that?
It's like you have a huge smile on your face. You're just so delighted.
Physics, I think you might just really like roguelites.
True.
I know you'd never heard of them before, but that's kind of what they're all about is... Well, in most roguelites, you wouldn't get as much switchability within one run, but you'll get that replay value and that, oh man, how does this new thing affect my run?
Yes. Yeah.
And affect what I'm doing every single time. And so maybe we'll do more roguelikes on the show.
That would be cool.
But ones that I would recommend that are like classics within the genre, if you want to just go play them yourselves, Binding of Isaac will absolutely give you that. It's, if that's the thing you liked about this game, it's like, ooh, I wonder how like picking this thing will affect how the rest of my stuff works, or wanting to just experience a lot of new different ways to play the game. Binding of Isaac, 1000%, that's what you want.
Isn't that kind of a creepy game, though?
I mean, it has like creepy subject matter, but it's not like spooky. It's just like, ooh, these enemies are like floating vaginas or something. Not actually floating vaginas.
2S,
Maybe
2S.
they're like floating disembodied hearts or eyeballs, or but like they're just like JPEGs moving around.
Got it.
It's not
like
a
jump scares.
creepy game. No,
okay,
not at all. Other ones that are classic, so Rogue Legacy is like part of the namesake of roguelites. There's also a really old game just called Rogue, I believe, which is like where it originally started. But Rogue Legacy is another good one. Enter the Gungeon is good. It's a little less incremental change and more just like, oh, I have a new gun that does new things, and that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And oh god, there's one more.
Well, Risk of Rain is kind of like this too.
Yeah, Risk of
Mhm.
Rain is too.
Okay.
That's a good example.
Or, arguably EU4,
Oh, this is gonna kill me. There's one. It's almost like the precursor to Enter the Gungeon. It's not by the same person, but it's. Oh god. Nuclear Throne is the other one. It's Nuclear Throne is very much like a bullet hell. You got to be really good at like moving and shooting from like a top-down perspective.
Ah.
But it is still a classic roguelike too. So those are the ones for you or for listeners. If what physics was talking about with like incremental changes within your run, seeing how it affects like how you play the game, those are some good games for you to check out. And we'll probably end up talking about more of those. That's a good jumping off point. I wanted to kind of talk about this compared to other roguelikes. And it won't be that interesting of a conversation to have since you guys aren't that familiar with them.
Mhm.
But what I will say is, compared to other roguelikes, I would say that this game has a lot less item dependence, is how I'll phrase it. Like, you can go into a game of Kingsway and you can say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a mage and I'm going to use burn and kill everybody. Or I'm going to be an adventurer and I'm going to bonk everybody on the head. Or I'm going to be a rogue and I'm just going to have the fastest attack speed and I'm going to just kill everybody that way. And you can succeed. You can supplement it with items, or you can do what physics sounded like you were doing, where you're like, ooh, based on these good items that I got, I'm going to take these skills. So you can certainly take an item-focused run and have a lot of fun, but you don't need to, which is pretty different than most roguelikes. Usually roguelikes, you're sort of adapting your run. I kind of like that it has less item dependence. I think that it's a game that's probably a lot more approachable for people who are not as familiar with roguelikes, because you aren't sort of beholden to whatever the game gives you. You can come in with a strategy, which is what I think most people like want from a normal video game, and it sort of will introduce the roguelike elements for you slowly, and then you can decide whether or not you like them, and you can sort of grab onto them or not grab onto them if you do or don't like them. What do you guys think about that? Like, I know you haven't played any other roguelikes, but do you want it to be more run dependent, or do you like that you could come in with your own strategy and supplement it with items?
I think I would prefer somewhat of a mix, in that I can say, here's what I would like to be doing, but I'm going to have to change my actions and my build depending on what happens to me. I sort of joked earlier about Europa Universalis being a roguelike game, but
Yeah.
it kind of loosely is. And it's a game I really like, and I think it's similar to this, where I can say, I'm going to start as a certain country and I'm going to play a certain type of game, whether that's all conquest or colonizing or diplomatically, but I can have some idea of what I want to do. But then as the world develops around me, I can't necessarily just 100% stick to that strategy. I'm going to have to do different things at different times to adapt to the world around me. I think I like that idea because it makes you have to think about what's my overarching strategy, but you still have to improvise in the minutia, right? And so if I'm playing a roguelike, I feel like I'd prefer something like that, where I can say, well, I'm going to go for a ranger build. I want to do ranged attacks. But maybe in the first couple dungeons, most of my enemies are, close range melee or something, and I have to figure out, how do I balance this right now? Do I take the risk that later my ranger style will be better, or do I need to start adapting and putting more into like close range melee or whatever it might be? I feel like that just makes it more interesting, Like, you can plan it out, but all plans are destroyed at the first battle or something like that. I don't know
I think
what's
that's
the saying?
exactly what the phrase is.
I've definitely heard that before. I've heard like tell God your plans and he'll laugh.
No battle plan survives contact with the enemy.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. No, I like my version better.
I agree. So do you think that this game gives you that, or speak to that a little bit? Like how does Kingsway specifically speak to what you would want from like your idea of what you want a roguelike to be?
Frankly, for me, Kingsway felt like I could go in saying I want to be strength heavy, just big attacks and lots of HP, just be a tank, and then I can just do that. You get so many items, you can really quickly, say, okay, these are the best ones for my situation. You can just grind to get strong enough so that you can win. You kind of talked about it earlier where you can pick any strategy and it'll work.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of adaptation to the situation at hand. So I think that's why, when I talked about it earlier, I got bored with the combat because it was just the same thing for 4 hours.
Well, Physics, what are your thoughts about, it seemed like you enjoyed it more, but what do you think about do you want to be able to go in with a strategy ahead of time and make the run fit your idea of the strategy, or do you want to come in and take what the game gives you?
So I think, I personally really like just kind of exploring the game and seeing what does the game have to offer that I can use to my advantage or play around with. But I definitely will say that I've played a lot of games where you want to go in with a plan of what you want your build to be, or what do you want, Civilization, you know what I mean? You kind of decide at the beginning, do you want to be science, diplomatic, stuff like that. So I like to go into it with a game plan, but then I kind of see myself always adapting anyway, and seeing oh well, according to these past 200 turns or whatever, I'm really more likely to go along with getting a diplomatic victory or whatever, so it kind of feels like it's one of those types of games too. But I will say my most successful run, I went in already having a skill that was sword master or something like that, and then I was just well, let me try to just level the heck out of using swords. And I was murking people left and right at the beginning with my little short sword +1, and and then I got this other sword that gave me all these other abilities, and I was well, fuck yeah, good job, game, you rewarded me being awesome with the sword, and now I have a better sword. So I kind of like having a little game plan, but also when you can explore a game and take what it gives you and adapt to it. That is the most fun gameplay to me. That's how I felt in my Dark Souls run. It was oh, well, now there's fucking these other swords, or there's these 2 swords that are better than the 2 swords that I started out with, but I know that I like that fighting style because of all the other items I've tried out. That's what I prefer. So it's fun to explore a game, but then once you know what you want, then to get that from the game feels really rewarding also. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You had talked about kind of liking to explore the game, and one of the things I also enjoyed, but again kind of found a little lacking, was sort of the random encounters that aren't just combat.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one that I really enjoyed that I actually did sort of both options. Was sometimes you'll get a quest that's limited time offer, free potions, and it'll mark a little spot on your map, and if you go there, it's offering free potions. But it's only until 4 p.m. that day. And you get there, and there's a line.
Yeah.
Of 7 people. And it's do you want to try to cut the line, or do you want to wait? And it's if you don't get there until 2 o'clock, you're oh, I can wait. And you wait, and one person goes by, and it takes half an hour. And you're well, shit, I'm not going to get there in time. The first time I did it, I got there in time and was just waited. And it actually gives you a really good potion. I think it's a potion that gives you a free skill or something.
Oh, wow.
So it's a really good potion. The second time, I think I also got there in time, but I was ooh, I really want to know what happens if I try to cut the line and be a dick. And you cut the line, and it's are you, someone confronts you, and it's hey, you can't cut the line. And then it gives you the option to back down, or keep trying to cut the line. And if you keep trying to cut the line, you end up fighting the dude, and it says the potions cart cleared out, everybody left, and this dude attacks you, and you fight him, And instead of getting a potion, you get a small bag. So you get an extra bag instead of getting a potion.
Interesting.
And so I think that that's a cool give and take, both from a story perspective, but also like from, well, do you want a skill or do you want a bag? Do you want to be able to hold more treasure, or do you want to like be stronger?
Right. I wonder if that also affects your reputation. Did you say?
Yeah, probably.
Because I noticed that one time I got there in time, but waiting in line, I went overtime, and they gave me a coupon for a discounted potion. So,
Oh, okay. That's actually really good to know, because I was wondering what would happen if you didn't get there in
right,
time.
I got a coupon, but then I didn't know how to use it properly, so I accidentally sold it for a coin.
Was it, so I know that there's one that's you get from a quest that's just called like a potion coupon that literally gives you half price potions as long as it's in your inventory. I don't know if it's the same
Maybe
as
that was the same.
I'm guessing it was.
But it was in my inventory,
Yeah.
and I definitely didn't get a half price potion though. And then I tried
It's
to
just
use
like
it.
all potions are just cheaper.
Maybe I don't know. I'll have to go back and look. But
It could be a different
I definitely
thing.
know that I accidentally put it in the store trying to like add it to my cart, and then it was like, got 1 coin. I was like, shit,
Yeah.
damn it, fuck.
Some of the other like one-off things that I found really interesting were there in some of the dungeons there's a sacrificial altar which lets you sacrifice some of your HP,
Right.
but it gives you a stat point. And you can like use it multiple times. So like I think there was also a quest where you like retrieve a guy's ring from a bandit, and the ring is really good. It's +3 in every stat. But the quest is to turn the ring in, and it doesn't tell you what you're going to get as a reward. But I was like, fuck it, I want to see what it is. And you turn it in, and you get a really good shield. And I think it was worth it, but it probably just depends on your, like, what builds you're going for. And it gave you a skill called Magical Shield 4, which, when you use it, it, for a decent amount of time, reduces all damage you take by 14.
wow.
Damn.
Dang it.
Which is
That is
nuts.
insane.
So on my rogue run, I literally used that and that's how I was winning so well. I used that plus my lifesteal to just basically never lose any health.
Oh my gosh, that's so smart. I had that freaking stat thingy, and I was just like, I'm not gonna use that. I'm okay. That would have been so helpful.
But see, then my question is, like, I know that's a specific build you had to figure out and make and run, but is it fun to just have a build that's just I win?
Nope. Nope. That I mean that's what I was saying earlier. It made me feel real smart to come up with that,
Yeah.
but then I was bored.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's fine in normal roguelikes where you're like, ooh, I've come up with a winning strategy and I'm bored for the next 15 minutes.
Right.
But I was bored for the next like hour and a half.
Yes, yeah.
And like I probably certainly more than Cardo, probably about as much as Physics. I do find a lot of joy in like getting the loot and like sifting through it and be like, ooh, this thing has 1 more strength than this other thing. I want it. And, like, that's why I really like Borderlands. It's one of my favorite games ever because the process of getting loot is enjoyable to me. Like, monkey brain like shiny thing.
Oh, hell yeah. Shiny thing? Hell yeah.
Yeah, dude, shiny thing. But once you get to that winning strategy, it does get kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, like, this game has a lot of cool things, but the biggest downside is the balance is just not there. But I still think it's like a pretty decent game. So, okay, the one last thing, or did you guys have any other like interesting one-off things that you found that you wanted to talk about?
When you told us about the game, you mentioned that the soundtrack was pretty banging.
Yeah.
Soundtrack was pretty banging. It was
Oh
pretty good.
yeah, the soundtrack.
Just as good as Shiny Thing, dude. Like, ooh.
I legit did love the music. I had to turn it down a little bit because some of it was a little
Yes.
ting-tingy, but
It's
like
pretty loud.
I did enjoy that soundtrack. I vibed.
Yeah.
Nice.
So the one last thing I wanted to talk about was the secrets in the game.
Oh.
So neither of you beat the game, but what happens when you kind of get jebaited? So at the beginning,
Spoilers, by the way, for anyone
okay,
who
yeah,
doesn't want to know.
spoilers, I guess. We already kind of spoiled some things, but spoilers. Okay, so at the beginning, you have a note in your inventory that's like, come save the world. Go to the king's castle to, like, help save the world from the Sky Eater, which is going to eat the world. And you go there, and it turns out that you have to, like, fight the king's guard and that the king is really frail and dying. You defeat the king's guard, and he's like, maybe there's hope. And you're like, what? I don't understand. And then the king is like, you have to go kill the Sky Eater. I'm going to make a portal for you. We were, like, waiting to see who could be strong enough to do it. And, like, only someone strong enough to kill my king's guard, whatever. He, like, teleports you apparently into the Sky Eater. Like, you're just in, like, a flesh world.
Ugh.
Ugh.
It's kind of funny. One of the monsters in there is literally just Master Chief. It's just, like, a picture of Master Chief. It's, like, Alien Warrior or something, but it's, like, Master Chief with, like, tentacles coming out of his, like, eyeballs. It's a silly little... I wouldn't even call it an Easter egg, but reference, I guess. So when you go, it's basically just one dungeon, and you go through the dungeon, and there's a heart. It's the Sky Eater's heart. And you approach it, and it says, like, there's a beating heart. Like, what do you do? And you have the option to either attack it or to try to talk to it. But when you talk to it, it says nothing happens. And then your only option is to attack it.
Mhm.
And then you have a boss fight. And the boss fight's actually, like, pretty anticlimactically easy. I would say it's easier than... probably both the third beacon boss and also the King's Knight. But it's kind of purposely anticlimactic because when you defeat the Sky Eater, you die.
What?
It like teleports you out of the Sky Eater, and then you get like sucked backwards to like where the game started, and then you just get that like blue screen that happens when you normally die. And it's just like you died. And you're
What?
kind of just like, what the hell? But you get the achievement for beating the game.
Okay.
And so you're sort of like left confused and a little unsatisfied,
Uh-huh.
which I think is an interesting and like vanilla ending to the game. And that lets you unlock the Worthless, which I had talked about earlier.
Uh-huh.
And so when I was playing through it again, I was like, I wonder, like, obviously there's more to do, and I wonder what it is. And at one point, I ended up with an item called Feather of the Sky Eater, and I was like,
I had one of those.
and it has a use option, and I was like, oh, hell yeah! I bet I use this like in the Sky Eater's lair or something, and something will happen. And I actually ended up with 2 of them.
Okay.
And I go to the Sky Eater's lair, I use it, and it says like, you feel more connected to the cosmos. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. And I used the second one, and it was like, you feel even more connected to the cosmos or something. And then I went and I talked to the Sky Eater, and nothing happened.
Okay.
And I had no other options. And I just had to kill the Sky Eater. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, obviously that's what this is. And so I looked it up. You need 3 of them. And once you eat 3 of them, then it lets you talk to the Sky Eater and you get a different ending. And it's just like, that's pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
I spent like a couple hours doing this.
Yeah.
And I just didn't get enough of this. Apparently, each time you clear a normal dungeon, you will get one of that item.
Oh.
It's like, how am I supposed to know that? I wasted a bunch of time. And so, like, it's an interesting ending that is frustrating when you don't quite know what you're doing.
Well, like, in a way, though, that's kind of, like, a cool thing. Like, it doesn't really appeal to me as much as I get older and I have less time. But the fact that it's like, hey, we're not going to hold your hand through this to tell you what to do to get the secret ending, that's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah,
it's kind of
for
like
sure.
going back to older style games where it's just like, figure it out. You know, there's no press F to pay respects, you know, like laziness.
One other thing that, really quick, before we keep going, if you looked at the description of the attack potions, it said, like, temporarily increases attack speed. Do not eat more than 3 in a day. And the whole time I was like, I wonder what happens if you eat more than 3. Like, do you die? Do you, like, become, like, a fucking Megamind? And so, literally right before we started recording, I just, like, opened a new run and turboed out buying 4 attack potions. And I drank one. I drank another. I drank a third one. You want to know what happened next?
Oh my god, tell me.
It just doesn't let you drink a 4th one.
Aww.
Yeah, I know. So it's things like that, like, it's so close to being, like, really good, but instead it's just, like, pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I think a better solution would have been, like, either give me one of the feathers of the Sky Eater every time I light a beacon, or only make it require one of them or something. I don't know. I agree though with Carta that like I like that it doesn't hold your hand. It, especially for the secrets, it makes it a lot more interesting.
I think it would have been cool, like if you like.
I was just gonna say physics. Go ahead.
If you like say, for example, with like the attack, like they could have done a little bit of cuter or more interesting things for sure. Like with the attack potions, like what if you drank 4 of them and like your UI changed color and like it like minimizes and opens windows back and forth or something like that. Yeah, right? Like you're like hyper caffeinated or something.
Yeah.
Like that would be sweet. But like I kind of don't disagree, or I guess I kind of disagree with you, but I understand the feather thing a little bit more because like I actually didn't really go into the dungeons or caves very much at all. But I am curious like to do that. So I was thinking of doing a run where I just like really power up and then like go through those. And so like that would have increased like my play time of the game because I now all of a sudden am doing this thing and I'm like, oh wait, what is this feather? And I'm looking at it and I'm going through all of them and I'm like, I keep getting feathers, you know what I mean? So I think that adds a little bit of an element of like another way you can play the game is like, oh, on this run I got all these feathers and like what the fuck is this? And you figure out, you know, how to use them and then you get a different ending, and that would be super rewarding for me, like replaying the game and trying the dungeons and caves, you know, and getting that. But I can see though still how that's like a really like I have to do those things that are not necessarily like main storyline things to be able to get that. I get the like feeling like the game is almost like petty to make you do that, you know?
I feel like that's not where I'm coming from though. My disappointment wasn't like, oh, I have to do these side things to get secret endings. I really liked that.
Mm-hmm.
I felt rewarded that like, well, I think part of it was I actually didn't know where I got those feathers from. I looked that up later. But I liked that, this item that doesn't seem to have any other uses probably has some secret use, and that I figured it out myself.
Mm-hmm.
That was really rewarding, and I felt like, oh man, that's really cool. I was just really disappointed that I, without knowing it, didn't have enough.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And there was no way for me to go back and get enough before I killed the final boss.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so it was just like, I'm probably not gonna, mainly because there's a lot of other games that I have and want to play, I'm probably not gonna go back and spend another 2 or 3 hours like getting the third feather.
Yeah.
But I don't want that to sound like I don't enjoy like doing the secret side things to get a secret ending, because like I think that that's some of the most fun in games like this, is like discovering the secrets and doing them.
Agreed.
So getting on to the 2 other endings, I actually didn't do either of these, but I think it's good to just talk about them because I got partway to doing some of these. I didn't know that I was getting partway to doing them. So did you guys ever come in contact with the monoliths in the game?
Yes.
I saw one, yeah, and I
Okay.
offered it random crap and it gave me something. I didn't really understand what I was doing though.
Yeah, so if you give them, I believe,
Magic
I don't
items?
know exactly. Yeah, I don't know exactly what triggers it, but you can give offerings to them and they'll like accept your offerings if it's good enough. And each time that happens, it'll give you a stat point, which is like a decent little reward. Like I'd probably rather have stat points than the gold value of most random junk items that I don't want. But if you give 3 of them to one monolith, like if it accepts it 3 times, you can't actually give it any more offerings, and the monolith will be like lit up.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Oh.
If you do that for all 3 monoliths in the map, it will open a portal to hell.
Oh!
And you can like go either talk to the demon lord or fight him and kill him. And then you, based on what you do there, if you talk to him, you can either sacrifice yourself for him to go save the world. Like he will go kill the Sky Eater if you sacrifice yourself to him. I think you can kill him and then like use the power of like now being the demon lord to go kill the Sky Eater, or you can decide to just stay in hell and like rule hell.
Cool.
So those are 3 other of the endings.
That's interesting.
And then the last ending, I think it's if you Oh no, I think it's part of that. So if you kill the Demon Lord, become like the devil, and then leave hell, you can then kill the Sky Eater in like the overworld. Like basically just go backwards into the shadows, and eventually the
Oh.
Sky Eater will just attack you.
Hmm.
That's kind of cool.
And so I think that that's all of the secret endings.
I definitely knew that there was some like underworld thing, and I can't remember if it was an interaction or an item, but something did talk about like going below the surface, and I was like, wait, what? Because aren't you like trying to fight a sky boss? So how does that make sense? So there was like a little sprinkle of that being a hint in one of my runs, but I didn't actually pursue that at all. Interesting.
I really like that it doesn't really tell you about the secret endings, other than, like you said, like a little bit of maybe like flavor text on an item, or like when you save villagers, they'll like tell you rumors and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, maybe that's what that was too.
Yeah. So I quite like that the secrets are pretty secretive, but very achievable on your own. Like a lot of games, some of the secrets are like, dude, there's no way anybody would ever figure that out by themselves. But these ones do all feel pretty achievable on your own, which I will give them credit for.
I didn't get a note in on it, but at one point in the game, I found this like mysterious piece of paper that was it was like some diagram about the monolith. It was trying to tell me something about the monolith.
Paper.
Yeah, and it was like, I don't really know what this is, but I know it's telling me that there's something I could figure out around the monolith. So yeah, it's like, you can figure this out. There's clues, there's hints, but you got to do it yourself. Because it didn't occur to me to actually go try that.
I don't actually know what the research papers do.
I think it was just telling you, I think it was trying to indicate what kind of item to donate to it, maybe?
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure.
I only know it's magic items because I fucking looked it up. Because it was like one of the
Nice.
few things that I was like, what am I supposed to do here? This feels important, but I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, any final thoughts on the game before we close out?
I'll just say I think it is a game that if you either like roguelikes or like lighter RPGs, I think it's a really, really interesting game to just pick up. I think not on sale, it's only like $10, and it often goes on sale for like half off or something. So it is definitely worth just trying out, because I think it has a lot of interesting things going on, even if it's not my favorite game, because it does have balance issues. It does have a lot of parts of it that could be better, but like I think it does a lot of things well, and it's worth at least checking out.
Yeah, I can kind of agree. I might say it's worth picking up if you see it on sale. Like, put it on your wish list. If you get an email saying it's, half off for $5, pick it up. Because it was fun and interesting and engaging for that first run. But then when I got to the end of it, it was like, oh, I have to do all of that again? Not
Great.
I'll pass. So
Yeah, definitely kept my interest. I will likely play it again in the future, so I'm glad that you suggested it. It was a fun one.
I think it would be interesting if we each gave it like a score out of 10, and then we could just like keep track of all of the games throughout the whole time we do this. I think that would just be interesting to
I'm down.
do.
sure, fuck it.
Let's do
I'll
it.
give it a 7.
I would probably say about the same, but do you want to explain?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I guess
I didn't know.
the whole podcast.
That's
is kind
true,
of
but I
the
didn't know if there was
explaining.
like some like 2 reasons why or like whatever. Yeah.
No, just a 7.
Okay, cool. From the scale of Carto to physics, what would it be? Or too much dad to sneaky squid? Where would you put it?
It'd definitely be in the physics. I'd say it's in the physics too much dad quadrant.
Yeah.
I'll put it up there
think
with
I
no
I
explanation.
would agree with that, actually. That makes total sense. I also kind of would give it a maybe a 6, though, even though I was talking about how much I love it. But, like, I mean, it's not the best game out there. I will play it, but I'm not, like, gonna go... Well, I would go play it after this. What am I saying? But I'm, like...
Wait. You know what? You're right, though. An average game should be a 5.
Yeah, so what I was going to say, physics, is
Yeah.
I learned from judging Thanksgiving Minecraft builds with Carlo that he is a very generous judge. He gives things he doesn't like a 6 or a 7.
How dare you? If it's an average game, I'll give it a 5.
Carlo's switching his to a 5.
Down to a 5.
What do you think, physics?
A little above average for me. I really enjoyed it. My biggest thing is I wish it was more efficient so it didn't take more time. So I'm not gonna give it a 7. I'm gonna give it a 6.
Interesting. I'm gonna apparently end up giving it the highest score. I I think I'm gonna give it like a 6.5 because it goes out on a limb with a lot of the things it does, and it has a lot of interesting ideas. It's just unlike physics. I probably am not gonna play it again. I'll probably think about it and like be like, oh man, that's interesting, and like wish that other games would do things like it. But at the end of the day, there's other games that I'd rather play. You know.
Yeah.
So I'm going with 6.5.
All right. So what's that? A total? Is that a 17.5? Did I math right?
Yes. I don't think that the total is that interesting because we each, like, our scales are probably all very different. But you guys got anything else before we go?
We got to figure out a way to end these though.
Do we tell people what next week is gonna be?
No. But yeah, thanks TooMuchDad for suggesting the game and walking us through it, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm excited. Tune in next time on TN.
See ya.
The other thing. Oh God, I don't remember what I was gonna say.
It's okay.
Oh well. Well, it's gone.